You can't replace part of the brain. Like, you
treat them the same.
The source of truth for the medtech industry.
Coexists with the province.
Robot understands things automatically.
Number one show in the medtech industry.
So Stryker got ahead of that and changed it. In the 90s, built $1 billion company that held up high. A lot of things.
State of MedTech.
With your host, Omar and Khatib.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Another exciting robotics companies. You guys know that I love robots. Problem with robotics these days is that a lot of them are just, I don't want to say just, but really are focused on surgical robotics. And too many of them, they all kind of seem to blend together, whether you're in the spinal space or soft tissue. So anytime a robotic company in our industry comes out and it's not surgical, it definitely catches my attention. So today we have the CEO of Spiro, Dimitri Sokolov, who's a good friend of mine. We actually worked together back in the company formerly known as Potrero, now known as Akron. So we worked together there. He was the director of R&D. And now over at Spiro, which is a really cool medical robotics company. And what caught my eye is that it's a handheld system focused on intubation and airway management. But yeah, Dimitri, great to have you on the show. Congratulations on all the traction and excitement. Tell us a little bit more about the company.
Sure, yeah. So we're making a small handheld robot for tracheal intubation. Out of 30 million intubations, 20% are difficult. And with our device, all of them are going to be easy. But it's more than just intubation. Imagine that this is a Trojan horse that gets us the entire airway management market over time.
Interesting. Tell me more about that. How do you see it as a Trojan horse?
Well, so difficult tracheal intubation, it's a huge unmet need, and therefore they'll provide us access to the hospital. But if you wanted in this market, if you wanted to launch a video laryngoscope, right, that's a Me Too product. Everybody has one. There's tons of them. So this will allow us to get our first device out, and then we can branch out video laryngoscopes, bronchoscopes, and then potentially move into other areas as well, such as otolaryngal surgery and other areas as well.
Interesting. So your thing is that because intubation, you said how many intubations happen every year roughly in the US?
There's 30 million in the US and about double that worldwide.
Okay. And so the way you are looking at this is that you guys are going to start off by, I guess your beachhead would be intubations, which makes sense because it's not just in emergency settings or critical care settings. Anytime there's a surgery that being done, an intubation has to happen. And so your thing is by focusing on the beachhead of owning the difficult intubation settings, such as critical care and everything, that'll allow you to translate over into all these other areas of intubation. And because you own that entry point, now that gets you into airway management because you're essentially using robotics to solve the problem. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yeah. We're using robotics to address an unmet need. So difficulty is, yeah, you're totally right. Emergency department, ICU, those are difficult intubations. But there's other patients groups within the operating room space that are difficult. Your obese patients, obstructive sleep apnea patients, patients that have limited neck mobility are all difficult to intubate. And so in that regard, there's an unmet need there from the doctors, and doctors are looking for better solutions than what they currently have. And once we own those, once we can take care of the most difficult cases, we'll be ingrained in the system. And that will allow us to expand beyond that.
It's amazing. So who, for the audience that are investors who may not be familiar with this part of medicine, who exactly are your primary users then?
So anesthesiologists are the biggest category, and they're in the operating room, and there's anesthesiologists that work in the ICU as well. In the ICU, there's also intensivists and interventional pulmonologists, and then in the emergency department, you have your emergency department clinicians that intubate. Those are the primary ones that on the doctor front.
Fantastic. So let's kind of look at what the current standard of care, or as I like to call it, the status quo is. So what is the status quo today? How's this normally being done, and what's wrong with that?
All right, everyone, quick commercial break. If you're a medtech CEO/founder, or maybe you're a sales or marketing leader at a startup or a scale up, you're going to want to listen to this. Are you struggling to get in front of your ideal audience, whether that's investors or perhaps clinicians who want to adopt your product? Maybe you're getting ghosted. You send emails and messages and nothing comes back, nothing happens, right? Or worse, nobody knows who you are, right? In business, visibility is everything. And I always tell people, if you want to persuade before persuasion can happen, you have to learn how to get attention. So if your sales team is desperate for traction, clinicians don't know your name, investors have never heard of you, you're losing opportunities every day. And that needs to change now, not tomorrow, not next week, now. That's where my company, Katib & Co. comes in. We don't just do marketing, we do growth. We figure out how to engineer markets by creating magnetic messaging that makes you impossible to ignore. And we build high impact strategies, of course, using social media, but other channels such as email, text, and others to help turn content and messaging into commercial pipeline, and it leads into closed deals. As an example, we worked with a surgical robotics company in raising a $31 million Series A, and then they needed help on their pre-market release. So we packed their CRM with 198 surgeon leads and nurtured them down. That ended up becoming 4 closed hospitals. 4 hospitals closed and adopted this technology within a period of 6 months, and they got 2 great key opinion leaders in the process. So whether you're a startup founder wearing too many hats, or maybe you have a marketing team that's just spread too thin and they don't have the expertise, my team and I plug in and partner up with your company, and we amplify your reach. From crafting powerful sales scripts to optimizing your team's demo calls, creating content, having it go out on a consistent basis, we transform your outreach into a growth engine. So if you're ready to dominate your market, you're ready to become a known name and people to know of you and take your calls and take your meetings, I want you to act right now. Don't wait anymore, because you've already wasted it plenty of time. Go to growmymedtech.com. That's growmymedtech.com. And I want you to schedule a quick call. My team and I will give you a free analysis with 2 to 3 actionable ideas. There's no strings attached. And if we're a fit, great. We can get partnered up and we can help you go to the next level. And if not, look, the ideas are always free. So do not wait and don't waste any more time. Go to growmymedtech.com right now, and let's make you the go-to name in your niche. Now, let's get back to the episode.
Yeah. So today, there's a ton of different tools to address difficult intubation. None of them work across the board, but the most common tools you use for intubation are direct laryngoscopes, video laryngoscopes, and flexible intubation scopes. Clinician skills with these tools are all over the map, and that continues to cause a lot of variability and unnecessary complications to the patients. Um,
Got it. Um, when you look at like video laryngoscopes, what are some of the issues that are seen there that, because I can see with like manual intubation, there's a lot of variability, but like with video laryngoscope, I would imagine it's a lot easier though.
Definitely. Well, video laryngoscopes provide great visualization. So you go in and you usually are able to see, not always, but usually you are able to see, but they do nothing for helping you navigate the endotracheal tube into the patient's trachea. And, based on the anatomy and clinician skills with doing that, the results wind up being all over the place. We're looking at high degree of failure rates on the first try, and then looking at, anywhere between 10 to 30% complication rate, depending on what setting you're in.
So if you don't do video laryngoscope and you just do like regular or traditional intubation, eh, are they just doing it essentially like blind? There's no like visualization. You're just
Well, they go in and they have to usually apply a ton of force with like what looks like a metal shoehorn, and they have to get really up close to the patient's mouth, and they look through a tiny tunnel to try to see where they're going. And then the moment you put the endotracheal tube in, all of a sudden it obstructs your view, making it very difficult to get. And the bigger issue there is in many patients, especially like your morbidly obese patients, you just can't see anything when you do that. Because even though their patients are large on the outside, they actually end up being very small and confined on the inside.
interesting. Yeah, and that makes that makes a lot of sense. And I'm also wondering, um, so you have regular intubation, you have the video laryngoscope. Is there any other form that people use to essentially gain access?
Yeah. So, flexible intubation scopes or bronchoscopes are a common tool used. Those were the two options before video laryngoscopy came out, were direct laryngoscopy, that's like the shoehorn, and bronchoscopes. Um, Bronchoscopes have fallen out of favor over video laryngoscopy because uh, the published results for bronchoscopes are worse. Uh, the reason for it is that people aren't very good with bronchoscopes. They require a lot of skill to use, and it's also awkward. I've tried to use one. They're awkward to use because tissues are confining. If you wind up hitting, tissues or walls that are in the patient, you all of a sudden you can't see where you're going, and it makes it difficult. And like I said, the skills, just your average clinician doesn't have necessarily good enough skills with a bronchoscope to consistently intubate difficult patients.
And I actually pulled up your guys' website. For those who are interested, go to Spiro Robotics. That's Spiro robotics.com. So I want to pull up your device to show people who are watching on Spotify and YouTube. Here we go. Can you see my screen?
I can, yeah.
Perfect. So like, here's your device. I'm gonna press play. So tell us what we're seeing here, what's coming out.
Yeah, so our device comprises dual cameras, and what you just saw there is our robotic endoscope. So the robotic endoscope has a camera at the end of the tip that it can robotically extend and then articulate 360 degrees. And that articulation allows it to get anywhere it needs to go to in the airway.
Mm-hmm. And I think you guys have this other demo here. So this looks more like the device is definitely different now because it looks like it's a more of a prototype.
Yeah, this is our older 3D printed prototype still. But here we're using joystick and buttons to navigate.
But that's moving like really fast, by the way.
Yeah, no, the device can intubate really quickly. And so using joystick and buttons and navigating the endoscope into the patient's trachea. And then once it's in the trachea, all the clinician has to do is advance the endotracheal tube over the endoscope, and the patient's intubated. And that's the beauty of our device. So regardless of difficulty, you can intubate a patient in under a minute consistently.
Fantastic. Now with regards to where you are currently, where are you like in your regulatory pathway and commercial plan? Where's that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we just completed our clinical study in Lithuania.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Where it went really well. And we're
I saw the
going
press
to
release.
get,
I heard that that one of the doctors was trying to essentially keep and like re-sterilize the product. Like that's a pretty good sign that the product works really well.
yeah, I mean, the clinicians were really enthusiastic about it. Obviously, we couldn't let them keep it, but the other anecdote from the study was that one of the clinicians said she was really mad when one of her patients didn't consent because it took her 3 tries to intubate that patient, and it was stressful for everybody in the room. Surgery was delayed. Just, a very rough experience. And in her view, with our device, it would have been easy. And that's the whole point, is it makes intubations easy every time and consistent for everybody involved. And yeah, we're due to submit our 510K by in Q3 this year, and so the idea is that we should obtain our clearance by the end of this year, and at that point we'll begin commercializing.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And then, something I wanted to ask you about without getting too far ahead, but, one thing that I have some experience in from my time in robotics is the use of computer visualization. And so, is there, as part of your roadmap, if you're able to talk about it, any applications of like computer visualization, potentially even AI, just because, if you're putting something that has video capabilities, and I saw like a tracker on that one video, is that part of your roadmap?
For sure, yeah. So in the longer roadmap, we're focused on getting the joystick controlled robotics out first, but in the longer roadmap for sure. And we have some actually great developments on that front about using AI to navigate the endoscope for us. Now it'll take time to obviously clear all that, but we had recently had some great success in a cadaver lab. We were able to intubate 3 out of 3 cadavers using our AI model. And of course, like I said, that's future down on the development map, but we're actively working towards that.
Fantastic. Um, Something I want to ask you about. So like the market for intubation, um, it's what's the size of it roughly?
So the difficult intubation market is about, we believe it's about $2.5 billion that we're going to obtain initially. But then the larger airway management market's closer to $12 billion.
Interesting. How, because so what's interesting for me is like, your background, you had spent time in R&D both at, Stryker and at Accurate. So how did you come across this company? Like, what's the story there?
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit of luck here and there, but Dr. Vladimir Mackenzie, Stanford professor of anesthesia, he founded the company in May 2020, and he's a full-time anesthesiologist, and he was looking for, he had some great ideas and of roughly what he wanted, but he needed to have somebody turn those into reality, and that's through a mutual friend. We got introduced, and started working together slowly. And then I started working part-time in November. And then they wanted me to work full-time right away, but I had a 3-month-old, and I told them there's no way that I could run a company with a 3-month-old at home. And so then, but then we started working together, and I enjoyed working with Vladimir and joined full-time in March of 21. And yeah, been running the company since. It's been, it's interesting coming from an R&D side, but I love building things. And most of my career I spent building products or, fixtures or something. In this case, I'm doing all that, but also building a company, and they're different, but not that different in the grand scheme of things. It's still, you got to put the right parts and pieces into place, having the right systems in place. And I've been loving it.
Fantastic. So you had your success with your first in human, and then what does the, sort of the rest of the year look like? And then like conservatively, when do you think you might be commercial?
So the team is primarily focused on getting our FDA clearance. At the same time, we're also fundraising. We're raising a Series A right now. And assuming that comes together, which we think, we have a pretty good chance of putting that together, we should be on the market in January.
Fantastic. January of 26?
Correct.
Fantastic. That's great. And so then your beachhead essentially is critical care anesthesiology, correct?
Yeah. So I think the first, like the very narrow beachhead we're targeting will be head and neck anesthesia. So your ENT surgery, oromaxillofacial surgery, and then as well as neurosurgery. As I don't want to offend any anesthesiologist, but as one ENT surgeon told me, he is responsible for fixing the problems that the anesthesiologists cause in that space. So he is really excited about getting our device in the hands of anesthesiologists, so it makes his job easier. And so that's where we're going to start first, is places where not only are the anesthesiologists excited, but we also have a high degree of surgeon support. And then quickly move into ICU and emergency departments as well.
Fantastic. That's really exciting. And so again, just to understand that the way you're seeing this is that your beachhead is really a Trojan horse in the sense that you want to land in intubations, expand and own that market. And by doing that, that's sort of the entryway to all of airway management, correct?
Exactly. Yeah. So from there on out, handheld robotic bronchoscopes, video laryngoscopes, as well as other ancillary products that go along with it.
Great, great. And, in doing that, because this is the first company that I know of that's essentially uh, tackling intubation. And then on the airway management side, there's a few robotic companies that are doing that, but they're more like surgical robotics. Um, so that being said, when you look at strategics in terms of potential, we can say potential acquirers, potential lead investors. I mean, who's kind of in that market?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest players in like the traditional sense would be your Medtronic, Teleflex, Ambu, and then Verathon and Karl Storz Verathon and Karl Storz own the majority of the video laryngoscope market.
Marathon and Karl Storz own majority of
Verathon and Karl Storz, yeah,
Interesting.
have a large presence in the video laryngoscope market. But then, Ambu has video laryngoscopes and disposable bronchoscopes.
Ambu's
And
Ambu's main approach is like they have like a fully disposable video laryngoscope. Is that correct?
fully disposable video laryngoscope and fully disposable bronchoscopes. So that's
So
their approach.
interesting. So like knowing these different models that exist on the business model side, what's the business model for Spiro? Like how are you guys going to make money?
Sure. I mean, razor blade model. We have a disposable bronchoscope or disposable endoscope, and then a disposable laryngoscope blade. Those are going to be our main things we're selling. Now, there's a small capital component. We have our, the handheld robot portion of our device, as well as a display. And we plan on selling them, but they'll be cost competitive with today's video laryngoscope systems. In
Really?
the grand scheme, yeah, we plan on charging around
The
15,000.
disposables or the whole thing?
So the capital component. The capital component.
That's
will
pretty
be-
impressive. So your robotic device is going to be uh cost competitive to like a video laryngoscope.
Correct. Yeah. So the system will be at $15,000. The disposables will be more expensive, but the disposables are going to be, the same is similar to what you would pay for a disposable video laryngoscope and a bronchoscope. So around $400 for the disposable set.
Interesting.
Mhm.
I'm very much used to when you have a robotic system, robotic anything, it's usually 3 to 5x price tag on it. You're saying that the robotic system that you guys have or the robotic device is going to be comparable to a video laryngoscope. How are you able to, I guess from a manufacturing standpoint, how are you guys able to do that? I guess maybe now, like, has technology gotten so good that you're able to manage those costs better? Like, how's that possible?
Well, it's about designing a product with knowing that the market will be cost constrained, right? And driving out the idea of, at the end of the day, like our system is disposables are more expensive than a video laryngoscope disposable, but the idea is to still save the hospital money by reducing complications. And yes, the technology today has definitely allowed us to lower the price. At the same time, I think we've done a really good job with the design, making sure that it's straightforward to manufacture and that it fits in a small envelope, allowing us to, I don't want to tap my own heart too much, but it's a really clever design on how to keep the product relatively simple to accomplish the task. And I think there's a lot of opportunity there in general for in the broader market. And we have some other ideas around the handheld robotic space, around making robotics more accessible. I know that's an overplayed term, but it's, yeah, making robotics more accessible by making them specialized to do a very specific function. So not a jack of all trades, but doing one particular thing really, really well, and keeping the human in the loop.
Well, I think you guys are positioned definitely to do that just because, like, yeah, that's an overplayed thing. But if you developed a robotic device that is handheld and is cost competitive to like the current standard, then, you're, I think, halfway there, you know? Um, when you look at the current market, like, is this something that can be well adopted within like an ASC setting or mainly looking at like large hospital settings since it's more critical care?
I think the place we're going to start is the large hospital settings because it's an interesting thing. It's a bit of a chicken and egg. I think right now a lot of these patients, either in the emergent settings or in the operating room setting, a lot of these patients that are morbidly obese and so on, that an ASC won't take them today. But that is a question of, with our technology, ASCs could accept more of these patients that they would normally turn away because they're too high risk. So we do believe we'll need to prove it out at the larger hospital settings first. But I think as ASCs will see that, hey, look, with this technology, we could intubate these patients, and it would be almost, a liability not to have a device of this nature on site in case we have an unexpected difficulty. But from a business side, at the same time, they could accept patients that they would otherwise have to turn away.
Interesting. Huh. Um, are you guys going to be going to any conferences for the rest of the year? If like a clinician or investor wants to meet up with you guys, where, I guess, on the clinical side, where are you guys going to be going?
Yeah, we'll be at ATS, the American Thoracic Society. We'll be at ASA, and we'll also be at the World Airway Management meeting.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, great. Well, Dimitri, thank you so much for coming on the show. Congratulations with all the success and traction, especially that, first in human trial news was really great. I'm excited to kind of follow along. And for those who are interested to learn more, go to their website, spirorobotics.com, or go follow Dimitri, his founder, Vladimir. They're both active on LinkedIn. And as always, I'm your host, Omar Khatib, and we'll see you all next time. Thanks for checking out this episode. If you want to do me a big favor and join so many other people who have helped grow this podcast, take a second and look below. If you're on Apple, give us 5 stars and write a short review. If you're on Spotify, just give us 5 stars. And if you're on YouTube, hit the like button. And most importantly, if you can, subscribe. We release so many different episodes that you may miss. Be sure to subscribe and turn your notifications on. You get extra points with me if you subscribe across all 3 channels. Thank you so much. And if you felt like this episode helped you, send this to somebody who'd really enjoy and appreciate it. Share and spread the love. We'll see you all next time.